Vision log, a second study on a feedback tool for ESL student writing. So my research is based off of an original study done back in 2010 here at Brigham Young University by Yi et al. And it consisted of 2 treatment groups and 1 control group. What the study did was they created what they titled a Rhetoric revision log, which was a log that was used to focus on content errors in student writing. So the teachers and students would use it to keep track of any content errors the students had in their writing. This log was tested at the intermediate high level. And rhetorical elements, according to the original study, was defined as elements of a text that contribute to the organization, presentation, development, flow of ideas, as well as word choice. So all of those things were looked at in this Rhetoric revision log. The study showed that students improved in their writing from draft to draft and essay to essay, and there was a statistically significant improvement from their pre-test to post-test scores, and over time they reduced their content errors in their writing with this log. So for my study, the second study, the purpose of it was to see if it further succeeded, so test it again to see if it continued to show improvement in student writing. And we did make some minor modifications to the log, which I'll explain later. And the 3 research questions that we had for the study were: 1, what is the effect of the log on student writing compared to the students in a control group? 2, are the teachers' responses to the log similarly positive to those in the original study? And then 3, are there categories on the log that are not effective for students at the intermediate high level, which was the same level as was tested in the original study. So here is the log that was used in the original study and then slightly modified for this study. As you can see, going across, we have 3 different types of essays. The students in both the treatment and the control group had to write the same 3 different types of essays. And then this log was used with 2 drafts of every essay. So 1.1 would be essay 1, draft 1, 1.2 would be essay 1, draft 2, and so forth. And then going down, we have the different areas of rhetoric and writing. So word, sentence, paragraph, content. These are the big areas in rhetoric and content. And then these smaller areas right here are basically types or very specific areas that apply to the bigger areas. So for example, in content, we have like examples, or in paragraph we would have like unity. Sentence, for example, there's concluding sentence, or word, there is word choice. And other ones similar to that. And then going down, right here is just the definitions of the codes, so the students can remember what each code stands for. There were 3 additions to this log from the original study. The teachers in the original study recommended that there should be 3 additional categories. The 3 additional categories were, one of them was concluding sentences. So that's CS, so that was not there in the original study. The teachers suggested that was added because they found that it was needed. Students sometimes forgot to have concluding sentences in their paragraphs. So that was added based off of the teachers in the original study what they suggested. The second addition was clarifying, CL. So that one was added because the students, or the teachers found that students often, their sentences would be grammatically correct, but incorrect, and there wasn't really a code that would that they could use, and so the sentence didn't make sense, but none of these codes would work. So the teachers said we could use CL just to tell us since this needs to be fixed, it needs to be more clear. So CL was added, and then the 3rd addition was cohesion, CO. So this is kind of similar to unity, which is UN. Unity is focused on paragraphs, so meaning, does the paragraph flow, does it have unity? So that was already there on the original study, but the teachers found that they needed a similar code for the whole paper, for the content of the paper, because they found that sometimes the paragraphs didn't flow together and the whole essay wasn't united. So they recommended we add cohesion, CO, to recommend that, to tell students that the entire paper didn't have unity. So the difference between cohesion and unity is that CO is on paper, the whole paper, and UN for unity is just specific on a paragraph. So those were the 3 additions that were added for the second study based off of the results of the original study. So how this log was used in both studies was the students in the treatment group, for example, would write their first draft of their essay. They would have their teacher grade it, and the teacher would have this log out while grading it, and they would mark on the student's essay any errors they saw using these codes. So for example, if the student's essay had an error in the thesis statement, the teacher would write TH on the paper to tell the students that there was an error in their thesis statement, and so forth. And then when the student got their paper and their log back, the student would count how many of each code they had in their paper, and they would tally in the appropriate box how many of each code they had. So the goal was over time to see the number of tallies reduce from draft to draft and essay to essay. So that was how it was used in the original study and in the second study with the treatment group. The control group did not use this, but they wrote the same 3 types of essays, and they also had writing conferences with their teacher, as well as the treatment group. The treatment group also had writing conferences with their teacher, where they sat with their teacher and they talked about their writing with their teacher. And with the treatment group, they also, in the writing conferences, talked about their tallies in their log. So that's how the study was conducted with the control group and treatment group. And then at the end of the semester, the students in the treatment group took a survey on their perspectives of the log, and the teachers were interviewed on their perspectives. And then a select number of student volunteers were interviewed as well to further see how the students felt about the log. So that's how the study was conducted. For the results, so the first research question again was, what is the effect of the log on student writing in the treatment group? So this is from pre-test to post-test, the scores. So the solid line is those who use the Rhetoric revision log, and then the dotted line is those in the control group who did not use the Rhetoric revision log. So as you can see from pre-test to post-test, the students in the Rhetoric revision log had more of a statistically significant gain from pre-test to post-test. So that showed an effect. And then the results for the second research question, which was, what are the teachers' perspectives of the log, and are they similarly positive to the original study? So in the original study, the teachers had high comments on the log. They really liked it. They suggested it be used in future writing classes. And then in this study, the teachers also had very positive remarks about the log. And some of the comments they made, all the teachers said there were basically 2 categories that the students often struggled with, and that was the difference between unity and cohesion. The teachers said the students had a hard time understanding the difference between those 2 categories. So that was something that was found in the second study. And cohesion, remember, was added in the study. So it was interesting to see how that kind of created a confusion. And then the teachers also said using the log helped them to balance their feedback between grammar and content and writing. And then the third research question was, are the categories effective for students at the intermediate high level? And so on the student survey, the students had to rate each of the categories by usefulness. So 0 being not useful, 1 being somewhat useful, 2 being useful, and 3 being very useful. So as you can see right here, we have the categories, and then this is the average. So Unity scored the lowest with a low 2, so it was almost considered somewhat useful. But as you can see, all the categories got pretty high ratings by the students. So they found pretty much all the categories to be useful for their level. And that is it. Thank you. And thank you, Sarah, because she was part of my study. She was one of the teachers.
I was interim part of her study.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, she was one of the many runs we did.
Oh, so you were part of the second study.
Yeah, so basically my study, in my final results, I actually included Sarah's class, but it was actually, there were a lot of classes that used the study, but then there were some classes we didn't include in my results because of just
but I was
like
the
human
teacher
errors.
who took over another teacher's.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, that's true. You were originally supposed to be part of it, but she took over for our teacher because the teacher ended up leaving. But yeah, so she ended up using the log. So yeah. Okay. Well, any questions? Yeah, Kirsten.
How would you feel about adding something for citation for students who maybe aren't high but get into the higher levels?
Yes.
Would you, do you think that would be like adding confusion, or with, like, as long as it matches the objectives for the class, could it?
I think I don't think you're add confusion. I think if it matches the objectives for the class, I think that's a good idea. I've never thought of that.
Well, I'm teaching it next semester. And
You should try that. You should add the citation
I might.
aspect
Also,
to it.
I thought about doing, instead of just 2 drafts, but adding in the outline. So,
Oh, okay, yeah.
adding it so they'd have 3 columns for each essay. One would just be the outline, and then one with 2 drafts.
That's a good idea. You should try it. Let me know how it goes, because I'm curious.
I think it might.
Yeah.
I like the idea of being able to see your progress over time.
Yeah.
It seems to help them in the yak, so it might help
Mhm.
also with writing.
Yeah. Yeah, let me know how it goes, because I'm curious to see
I think I might try
how that
that.
works. You should just try it and see.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you account for bias in the teachers that are doing the log versus the kids that are not doing the log?
Good question. So, are you talking about kids or teachers? Or both?
I guess both, but I was thinking about the teachers, but I guess both.
So I would say, well, honestly, I think the teachers were pretty honest with me because, I mean, they would say that because it is more additional work. And so and they did say that it was a little bit, because there was a learning curve, you had to learn the log. And so, I mean, they were pretty honest in the feedback by saying, there was a learning curve, which I didn't talk about there. And then there, but as far as bias goes, I mean, we had a whole range of teachers like I said, I didn't include all of them in the study. There were a total of, I think, 8 teachers that ended up using this at one point or another. And all of them, even the ones where I didn't end up including the research because of human error, even those teachers said they still thought it was a good tool to use. So, I mean, I guess there could be some bias, but for the 8 teachers we have, and some of them even had kind of negative experience just because there was like, one teacher left, another teacher had to come take over the class last minute, like instead there was another instance of that as well, and just some things like that. And so because of that, we didn't include some of those results in my study. But even though those teachers had kind of a headache trying to adapt to all of that, they still found the log to be beneficial. So I think that was a good indicator that even the teachers that had kind of a mess, with it still, recommended it. And there were, like I said, I think there were 7 teachers total that ended up using this at one point or another. So, yeah.
It's a good way to truncate feedback.
Yeah, from what I've heard from all the teachers, like there was a learning curve, and so it was definitely something to get used to. But in the end, it kind of made, and you can add to this or say anything, but it kind of made their feedback almost easier because instead of having to try to figure out how to write out the comments and try to explain things, they could just write the code, and then
I mean, you write the same things over and over again, so having a code.
Yeah,
a lot of students have the same issues and problems.
Right.
So if they know the code, they know what it means, then they know what to look for when they're getting outside help or fixing on their own.
It kind of streamlined the process in a way.
I'm curious about something too. So I know this for like your ESL students, but do you use anything similar to this like for your current classes?
I don't, but I'm thinking about trying it because I think it would be helpful for native speakers as well. I probably would, modify some of it, obviously, especially for junior high.
Yeah.
But I actually might try to use it next semester in one of my classes because I am curious to see if it would help with native speakers as well. So I'm gonna see, and I'll let you know if it works or if you're just confused. Yeah.
So I don't know if this is possible with like junior high students, but have you considered having them use the log to grade either their own essays or an example essay?
Yeah, or maybe they can even peer grade each other's. Right.
That's actually a really good way for them to like get familiar with it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, Dan.
So I'm a computer guy, right? I studied computer science here, and when I was working here in the lab downstairs, there was the elicited imitation test. I don't know if that still goes on here. But the idea was that the students would speak, at the beginning of the semester, take a test to speak, and then that would input into the computer system, which would basically try and recognize the words that they're speaking. And then another input to the computer was the actual words that they were supposed to be speaking, and then it would try and determine their accuracy on how well they're pronouncing words. And so I kind of thought of a different approach and maybe a cool application. And I'm going to throw this term out there, like machine learning is a really cool thing. And basically, you have a model that you can train where you've broken them down very well with all these categories and codes, and it would be like the perfect way to have that input, and then have students input the text of their essays, and then the computer could get pretty accurate at, along with the teacher's inputs. That's how you would train the model, and then that could be turned into a really cool tool for students to use as they're working on their essays. They could say, all right, I have the sentence, I want this to be my topic sentence or my concluding sentence, and then let's feed it into this machine system, and it could, based on how it's been trained with all these ESL students, it could help determine the likelihood of, getting what kind of a score on their essay altogether. So that would be a cool thing.
So my school actually uses something very similar, and I was talking to Zach about that last night, because it's actually grammar specific and not content. It's called Utah Compose, and all the public schools in Utah have not all of them. I don't know if all of them use it, but all of them can use it. It's a tool for the whole state. My school uses it. So basically, the students put in their essay, and they actually use codes. G is grammar, and then if you click on the G, it'll have a little G pop up on their paper, and if they click on it, it will actually tell them why it's grammatically incorrect. And they have spelling and all kinds of stuff, but it's only grammar. It's not content. They don't have one for thesis statement, topic sentence, stuff like that. But I was talking to Zach about this last night, because I was like, it would be really neat to improve that tool and see if we could get content aspects, because the students will turn an essay in there and they'll be like, I got a really high score. I got a 30. Look how awesome. And then I'll read their essay and I'm like, it is grammatically correct, and the spelling's great, but your ideas are all over the place. And so that they feel really good because they got one of the highest scores you can get on the program, and so it's not a perfect tool, and I don't use it for their final drafts. I have them use it, to check their spelling and grammar. But I was talking to Zach about that.
So there's already an app for that.
There is, but not for content. So they should, at least not that I know of. They should. There should be something. I feel like that would be cool to use to have content stuff on it. So yeah, that's interesting you brought that up.
So not a question, but a comment.
Yes.
The work that you've done is really, really cool, and Mariah has started using it in her writing classes.
Oh, good!
So she's planning on going with all of the writing classes next semester using it. And I've been putting it into the writing textbooks that we made.
Okay.
So there are example essays that I've coded, and then the students can use in class and talk about the codes and how to correct them all together. And it seems to be helping. So
oh, good! Yay!
That's really good work.
Yeah, so Mariah was one of the teachers that used it, so that's really cool to see that even though she's not part of the study anymore, she's still using it. Yeah. And Kirsten is one of our executive council members at the ULC. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
Great to know.
That's
awesome.
It's always nice when you
all that hard work. There's some use for it. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Well, awesome! Thank you guys for coming out.
So is this a requirement for you?
Yeah, so I found that out yesterday.
And Dr. Henderson finally got back to you in his email.
Yeah.
Hi, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah, we were all just running to get here on time.
I know, you guys are so helpful.